Miniature Market has thousands of board games at discounted prices. Click the direct link below to see all of those discounted games. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're going back into the prohibition area to run a company to try to produce and sell and move around alcohol in barrels to speakeasies, from stills, and also to casinos and nightclubs. We're also going to be associating with different mobsters, trying to protect the buildings that we have, or even overrun other mobsters' buildings. Today we're taking a look at a game called Speakeasy. This is the next upcoming game from heavy game designer extraordinaire Vital Lacerda. This is from Eagle Gryphon Games. And let me show you how it's played, and I'll see you on the other side. In Speakeasy, you're running your own company in the prohibition area. You can have capital you're sending out to talk to people to take actions. You're putting family members out to protect your buildings from the cops. You're cooking books, and you're associating with mobsters, giving you strength to help protect things and take over things. And you'll be doing all this through 16 different districts within New York and 3 different zones, downtown Manhattan, and so on. You're trying to have the most money in the game. You'll have some cash that you can spend, but you'll also be laundering money in your safe. Different things will get you money here, and it takes twice as much to spend money from here to keep people quiet because you're laundering it. So everything's twice as expensive from your safe. Most money wins. One of the main ways to make money is to produce and sell alcohol. So you'll be building distilleries out there. You'll be producing barrels of alcohol within those stills. You'll be using your truck to pick up that alcohol and move around to deliver to different places like speakeasies where you can sell them. But you'll also be either building or upgrading to nightclubs, or even casinos that will give you more money for those barrels and even possible some other abilities as well. But you can't operate your buildings if there's a cop there unless you have a family member protecting it, so you're trying to protect your buildings. And at the end of the round, you're trying to have the most protected buildings and the best buildings that are protected to get the most money in your safe, sort of area control at the end of each round in each zone of New York. You're not fighting against other players in the game, but you are fighting against the game itself because they have mobster speakeasies that you can go in and try to overtake them depending on the strength, and the strengths of these get harder and harder throughout the game. You might be going to the docks where there's some ships, and you might be buying barrels from specific ships there. Or if you're feeling real tough, you can ambush and attack the ships and try to steal the liquor as well. Another way to make money is to cook books. These are sort of goals that you'll be able to do to put money in your safe by having different goals that change each game, like having a protected speakeasy and a casino in the same zone in New York. And many other goals you can cook books in Central Park of New York with all different types of goals. You're going to be managing a company by putting out your buildings, increasing things like strength, or how many family members you can have at VIP, how many liquors you can sell at parties, how much you can produce, and how far you can drive. But you might also be associating with mobsters that are going to help you with strength as you try to take over different buildings and defend them. You're also going to be sliding into your board some different operation cards of different types, gaining benefits, and also gaining some leverage, which will help you get some of those mobsters out. This is all facilitated by worker placement, where you'll send a capital to go talk to somebody, taking some actions, and there's many different places, but most of the places can only hold one person. And the game lasts 4 rounds. Whoever has the most money in the end is the winner. All right, now before I start, a few things to preface. Number one is this was on Kickstarter recently. Kickstarter had ended, it funded, and they have late pledges open now, and they're gonna be open until the end of the year, December 30th, I believe. This is not a paid preview, this is a review. I have not received any monetary compensation for this, or any compensation other than they sent me the game to play. That's it. And so this is a review, not a preview. And the other thing is I often hear people say, hey, Dan doesn't like big, long, heavy games. That's not true. In fact, I like big, long, heavy games. However, for me, the longer the teach, the longer the setup, the harder it is to teach, the longer the game, the more it has to stand out for me to have it be separated from the rest of the crowd. And is it true that my sweet spot is probably 1 hour games that have tons of depth, like a Fromage, a game that came out this year. It's a 1 hour game but has tons of depth, not a lot of complexity. Yes, that pretty much is my sweet spot, but doesn't mean I don't like heavier games. When they come along, they really hit me well. For example, last year Nucleum came out. That's a 3.5-hour game, 3-hour game, and it's pretty darn heavy, and that was my strategy game of the year. I love that game. Even just in the last couple weeks, I reviewed Civolution, probably Stefan Feld's maybe his heaviest game, and then Unconscious Mind, and then also SETI from CGE. 3 heavy games I reviewed in the last month, so I don't have a problem with heavy games. It's just, again, the longer they are, the more, the payoff has to be so much better for me because of the time investment in those. So that's sort of my bias is sort of coming in. So let's talk about Speakeasy. First of all, the game, I like the theme. There was really something that really attracted me to it. I just think it's a cool theme, it's a cool setting, it's a cool time. Of course, you're selling them at parties, and the parties are sort of like jazz shows. Of course, saxophone serenades and such on my channel. I play saxophone on the channel and stuff like that. The game looks amazing. Oh my goodness. Ian O'Toole, as usual, knocked it out of the park. The game looks awesome. Graphic design so clean. It just looks so good. It pops off the table. This is a thematic Euro game. I love Euro games that are super thematic, and this is that. Everything sort of makes sense thematically, which makes teaching it make more sense, and it makes it easier to teach the game because, again, everything is just thematic. If there's a cop there, you're not going to be able to operate your building if you have someone defending it, right? Like, you can go and try to take out the other mobsters, but you're going to need to have more strength in them. Strength brings up your infamy. How far can you go with your car? Everything is just super thematic, and I like that. I love that money is how you win this game, and I like that there's money in hand that everyone can see, that you can use freely, or some of the things you do puts money into your safe that you need to launder at a 2-to-1 ratio. Again, thematic, but also cool and bring some tough decisions on what to do and how to do it. And money's the king at the end. So it's like, ooh, should I spend twice as much as I need to on this money behind my safe? Well, sometimes you might have to, right? And there's no taking out loans. This isn't a Martin Wallace game. So you have to figure out the economy of the game. It is an economic game too, in that regard. I like that there's a 4-step process. The main way to get money in this game, there's different ways, but the main way is to sell alcohol, right? And I like that there's like a 4-step process that, again, thematically makes sense. It's easy to teach, where you're building buildings like the distillery and possibly a speakeasy and maybe a nightclub or a casino, and sometimes you're upgrading buildings to that. So you've got the buildings to do the things. Then you're producing the alcohol, you're moving your truck around, picking it up from the distillery, dropping it off at these different areas, the speakeasies, the casinos, the nightclubs, and then selling it. It totally makes sense. So it's got that, you're selling the barrel. So it's like got that pick up and deliver aspect that is also interesting. And that gives you, it has an abstract component too, where you're moving around the city in different spots. You're trying to time to be lined up with some of the ships at the right times. You're trying to be timed up, doing it so your trucks can pick up the things pretty easily and where they're going to be delivering them to. I like that in addition to just making your own, you can buy them from the ships. Figure out where the ships are on the docks, go there, and you can take the easy route out and buy them. They're expensive, but you don't have to build all this other infrastructure to get those. Or even more thematically, you can ambush them, and depending on how many people are on the same docks as you, regardless if it's somebody else's players or not, it helps you. It's a multiplier in how much strength you have to overtake and ambush and steal the alcohol off the ship. But you got to pay off those players to do that because they're going to help you. Thematic, and it makes sense like that. I like that. Associating with the mobsters, a cool way to thematically get some special abilities, but also they're there for extra strength. You're using leverage at different times in the game to get your family members out. Everything is just super thematic in this game. I like that the game has relatively simple turns with how heavy and big the game is. It's like, I'm gonna, place a worker and take a card. That's usually most of your turns. And when I place a worker, sure, I'll sometimes doing 2 or 3 things, but for as much as that's going on, the turns are pretty streamlined. I like the cooking of the books. So you get these books, which is thematic. You're cooking books like the monsters do, but then you're using those to then take actions to finish goals. And you got these different goals. Some of them are in a zone of Manhattan. Some of them are in Central Park. So there's different ways to get end game goals, which also give you a lot of money. I like that there's an area control or component where you're trying to have the best protected building in the different zones, and so each district you're fighting over that. Some of them might have a great casino, but it's not protected, and you might have a little speakeasy that's protected. Guess what? You've got the area control. So that's interesting that there's better buildings than others, but they don't matter if they're not protected. Again, thematically as well, none of the buildings operate unless they're protected. That totally makes thematic sense as well. I like that You're fighting the mobsters of the game and not the other players. Now, you're going against the other players. You're trying to get spots that they want. You're trying to go to worker placement spots they want. And you are going against them in a somewhat indirect way, but with the area control in a pretty direct way. But you're never like overtaking their buildings. It's not a super hostile thing. Like you are trying to go in and take over Speakeasy from the mobsters, which essentially is like the game. You're basically fighting against the game. And when the new mobsters come out, the police come out, you're sort of fighting the game. You're not fighting other players. I thought it was interesting because there's a great balance between player interaction and just totally messing people over. Sure, you are playing against people. Sure, there's some interaction with the area control and such, but you're not like, it's not like a take that game, right? And you might be doing that to the game itself to try to get in there and take over their speakeasies, but it's not a player to player. And I thought that was an interesting balance. I think this is really going to resonate well with a lot of players, where it's like, you're not attacking directly into the player, but there is some player interaction there. On the negative side of things, let's see. Well, like most big, long, heavy games, this game has a ton of setup. Lots of pieces, lots of little things, lots of tiles, lots of shuffling, lots of everything. Setup is a long time, but it's pretty much par for the course in a game that's this long. You pretty much know what you're getting into if you're getting this. It's a longer game, 45 minutes per player, about average for one of these big Lacerda games. So you're at 3 hours if everybody knows the game well as a 4-player game. Right, so it's a longer game. Lots of icons, but they're very clear, and there's a great player aid. It's got one of those player aids they put in the Lacerda games. It's like multiple pages, and everyone gets one. I like that. Now, I talked earlier about how streamlined the turns are. There is in some other Lacerda games, sometimes the turns can be a little fiddly and different things and different procedural things that are happening and slowing things down. In this game, the turns are very streamlined, as I mentioned earlier, but there is sort of a phase at the end of the action phase, the Lucky Luciano phase in each turn. That turn is that part of the round is very procedural. And it is a little fiddly of the way that, you do this and you got to put this person out here, then you take this one, you put it out there, and this goes in that district there, but then that flips over, and if nobody was there, then this happens. There is some fiddliness there, but I will say it's there. It's not just there for the sake of being there. It's there because it helps create the arc of the game, which is as the rounds go on, you know where the cops are coming, you know where the mobsters are coming out from the game. They get harder and harder as they come out, and you kind of need that bit of upkeep and procedural nonsense. It's not really nonsense, but procedural mumbo jumbo in order to make the game sort of tick along. And that part is a little procedural, a little fiddly, and you have to constantly be looking at the rules and constantly looking at some special exceptions and this and that. It slows the game down a little bit, but again, it's there for good reason, and I'm willing to give it a pass because the turns are so streamlined. The theme's awesome. So overall, if you like Lacerda games, I think this is kind of a no-brainer. You should know by this if you think you're going to like it or not. I love the theme, love the thematics, love the turns, love what you're trying to do, love that there's a lot of interaction, but no take that really to them. It's a really great game. So with all that being said, you should know by now if this is for you. This has been the Game Boy Geek, breaking down barriers, growing relationships with board games, by helping you find the next one you love. Game Toppers upgrades every game you play, and their Christmas spectacular sale is currently running, where you can get 15% off all accessories and premium game mats with storage solutions, $100 off leg kits with a purchase of a Holmes or Watson Game Topper, and $75 off all dining covers. The sale runs through December 22nd at GameToppersLLC.com.